There's a lot of snow headed your way if you're anywhere near me. In New York, Kevin McCullough, glad to be with you at the AFA Today news desk, where we come to you every day hoping to, challenge you, to obliterate confusion, to amplify truth, and to pursue clarity. It's really what we want to do every single day, and we're grateful that you have a desire to do it. Kevin McCullough is my name, 888-589-8840, the number you can reach me at. And there is this story out of California that I think is important for us to discuss. The CBS News website reported the latest on it. We told you that it was coming. We had not told you that it had been signed into law, but it is now not only signed into law, it is the law. And on Monday, this last Monday, so the Monday before the new year, California became the first state to enshrine certain rights for transgender through 12th grade students. This is how the headline on CBS News' website put it. California law allows transgender students to pick bathrooms and sports teams that they identify with. Now, this is one of the examples of why being involved is really necessary. We end up not being involved in the process. This is what we will end up with: is boys and girls going to the same bathrooms, showering in the same locker rooms, playing on the same sports teams, doing things under a lie that says God made boys and girls no different from each other. Yesterday kicked off the brand new season of the Boy Scouts, which I don't even know why they name it that anymore. Because technically, if you were a transgendered girl and you felt very boyish, according to their new policy, you would be forced to be allowed to be part of the troop. Because there is suddenly now no allowance for any actual truth to penetrate the experience that is the Boy Scouts of America. This is what activism has done, and this is what a silent church has allowed to have done. Now, someone just wrote me on Facebook just before the break, some dude named Jack Taylor, and he's probably a guy that has been writing for a long time. What he does is he creates fake Facebook accounts and then sends a note until I ban him, and then I send him on his way. But Jack said, was listening to the Jim Cymbala broadcast this last week. He said it was a compelling witness as to why talk radio and the excessive focus on seeking to change the non-Christian culture instead of showing the watching world genuine love toward one another isn't working. What keeps me turning off Christian talk radio, except that he's not, because he's listening to me, and he keeps coming back to say that he is. What keeps me turning off Christian talk radio and drew me towards Jesus through Pastor Cymbala's statement. If your show was more like Pastor Cymbala and less like it is now, drawing more people closer to God and less closer to Republican causes, I would listen more often. Thanks for having him on. Sorry for the negative tone. I actually don't think this person is sorry for the negative tone at all. And I also thoroughly disagree. I'm not here to advocate for Republican causes or for anything else. And I'm not an advocate for Republicans. What we are going to do this year is pray through the issues that we face, but we're also going to try to work on creating different people. I've said this for a long time. I've said it, I don't know, Brent, how many times did I say it in 2013? If you want to grow a different culture, you have to grow different people. That starts with, and Brent says I've said it a lot, but it's true. And too many times, I think Christians fall in one of two camps. One, they fall into the camp of they confuse the nodding of the head with the doing of the deed. So they may be sitting there in their car right now going, yeah, Kev, yeah, we're with you. We know that this culture needs to change. Rah, rah, rah. We'll get on radio and we'll say we agree with our favorite talk host, whoever it is. And they'll confuse that nodding of the head with the doing of the deed. They'll confuse giving mental assertion to the need to live vibrantly, live dedicatedly, live exponentially as a believer in the culture in all ways, as the same thing as, they'll confuse the agreeing with it as the actual doing of it. And so I think we're still missing the boat in large measure. For people that say, Kevin, I don't want you to talk about activism or issues or any way that a Christian can be involved, I think you're also missing the point of what Pastor Cimbala was saying yesterday and the day before. He wasn't arguing that the world is hunky-dory. And it's not an either-or. It's not just tell people about Jesus or go vote for your favorite causes. It's an all-consuming both-and. It's a worldview that saturates everything that you do. So leaving cowardly little notes on Facebook saying, oh, well, if you just talked about the love of Jesus more, then, you might be getting somewhere, blah, blah, blah. That's thoroughly unconvincing, because Jesus didn't come to just reside in an empty shell. He came to transform a life from the inside out. He came to transform that life and to see to it that that life would be used for his kingdom's purposes, one of which is the current redemption of the world we live in now. So as a believer, if I believe certain things, if I live certain ways, my obligation then is to turn around and to impact the world that I have influence on under those same principles. First of which is, if you don't know Jesus, I want you to know Jesus. Secondly, if once you know him, you got to know that there's something expected of you. You're part of the plan now. You're part of the overall importance of the game, and it's not a game in the sense that your team is going to win. It's a contest for the souls of man. So yeah, we're gonna talk about this stuff, but get back to the story at CBS. This is a perfect example of what happens if Christians don't get involved. Do we want our public schools to become a place in which absolute moral anarchy takes up residence? Do we want our public schools to become this place where it's okay if we shove them off to the men's room or the women's room? It doesn't really matter. They're all the same. Is that going to be better for the welfare of young girls? Is that going to be better for the welfare of young boys? Will it further the idea of personal holiness and restraint in their lives to the degree that they don't expose themselves to dangers like sexual diseases, rape, sexual assaults, sexual identity confusion, all kinds of things? Are those things likely to be put in check or to be greatly amplified because a culture decides that they will thumb their nose at God? Starting with the government, starting with the governor of California, starting with the elected leaders of California. And you know what? By extension, the voters of California, because you voted for every one of those people that then went to that place and did that thing. Okay, I see a lot of the nodding of the head right now. Are you going to confuse that with the doing of the deed? Are you going to confuse that with, yeah, this story is important and we shouldn't do that? And then that's it. You're no more motivated to do anything about it than to sit there. Well, Kev, I don't know what to do all the time. That's okay. We're going to do one thing throughout the entire year that I know you'll be able to do, and that is we're going to pray. We're going to put a focus on prayer this year. And we're going to call America, but specifically the church, to a season of prayer. And we're going to say, hey, we need to lock arms together. We need to be on our knees together. We need to be saying, God, we are helpless without you. And if we get to that point, I'm pretty confident that God will hear us. The question is, will we have the humility to do that? So anyway, back to California. This law goes into effect today. The Democratic governor, Jerry Brown, announced that he had signed AB 1266, which allows transgender students to choose whether they want to play boys or girls sports. Let's just stop right there. If I was relatively decent in a sport, but I had a hard time making the boys' team, should I have a right to say, well, I feel like I want to play for the girls' team now? I could dominate at that level. I could dominate the girls' team. I'd be so good. I don't even need to use the smaller, basketball or whatever it is that they use, that it's different than what the boys play with, because I know that I could hold my own on whatever level at that. And how do we get to this place? Because there's really smart people, smart in an earthly sense, that sit around thinking to themselves, yeah, well, the problem is we can't really act out sexually the way we want to because there's these stigmas against it that come from all these different places in society. So what we have to do is we have to break down all of the places in society where those stigmas get made to begin with. And so one by one, the school, the marketplace, in public, anything related to the public. Now the schools, eventually the church. We will marginalize, isolate, or change those institutions so that morality doesn't look as though it's something that has to be observed, rather a mere suggestion that's just okay if you want to make it okay. It's funny that my Facebook friend, Jack, used the term that he did, that the Republican cause. How is protecting children a cause of any political party? How is saying to the daughters of my neighbors and to hopefully someday my own daughter that I will stand and protect your innocence against those things that would seek to tear it down, how is that in some way a Democratic or a Republican or an independent or a political cause at all? The people that usually complain about partisan politics are usually the ones that are sometimes the most partisan in what they actually want to see happen. And complaining about pointing out the differences between the parties involved is often a cover for wanting to advance the worst policies possible. I don't have contempt for people that vote for the left. I understand how the left works. The left oftentimes promises them things to vote for them. The problem I have are the people that don't vote at all. The problem I have are the ones that sit back and say, I'm not going to have a responsibility here. You can't do that. You're supposed to give to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God's what is God's. And in this country, where you are established as one of the Caesars, you have an extraordinarily important responsibility because you have the responsibility to rule as a governor, not just as a governed. 888-589-8840. I'm kind of all over the place, but I'd love to know your thoughts as we work our way through this. Supporters said that this law in California will help reduce bullying and discrimination against transgendered students. I don't think that's going to really happen at all. I don't think the bullying is going to stop at all. I think this will give greater access to bullies for students that are confused about some of these things. It certainly doesn't seem to make life any safer for kids. And it comes as the families of transgendered students have been waging local battles with school districts across the country. Remember, it's not just going to stay in California over what restrooms and locker rooms their children can use, disagreements that have sometimes landed in court. The National Center for Lesbian Rights and the ACLU of California were among the bill's supporters. Detractors, including some Republican lawmakers, CBS always wants you to know, said allowing students of one gender to use facilities intended for the other could invade the other student's privacy. And this is what you get from the author of such a bill. Carlos Alcala, spokesman for the bill's author, Democratic Assemblyman Tom Amiano of San Francisco. Zip codes count, people. In general, he said, such fears are completely overblown. Transgender students are trying to blend in and are not trying to call attention to themselves. They're not interested in going into bathrooms and flaunting their physiology. Right. And no boy who is hormonally driven at the young age that these boys are at would ever use a loophole of any sort to try to get into a girl's locker room that they shouldn't. That would never happen. I think the author of the bill is as naive as anybody else if he actually believes that. This is an arena and an environment primed for sexual assault, primed for dangers against kids. And now you're not talking about just the minuscule number of, quote, transgendered students that have self-defined as transgendered, because there is no real medical terminology for it. They've just said, "Oh, I feel like a girl today." No, what you're ending up here with is you're ending up with the potential for a good deal more pain to be levied out across the public schools of the state of California. 888-589-8840, your thoughts on this or anything else that I've been harping on this last hour. Let's go to Tim in Texas. Hi, Tim. Welcome. Glad you're with us. Kevin McCullough, glad to be talking to you.
Well, hello, Kevin.
Hi. Happy New Year.
Well, thank you, sir. Same to you. I just want to comment on your conversation about the law in California.
Yeah.
I'm just an average guy. You said, I heard you say something like, these are smart people. Why does this happen? And that made me pause. Because,
Tim, hold that thought. Tim from Texas, hold that thought, because the music means we got to go to a break, and I want to make sure that I understand everything that you have to say. And there will be others that want to weigh in. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. This is AFR Talk on AFA Today. The news out of California, the gender-neutral bathroom situation has become law, and students will begin using the bathrooms of their own sex or the opposite, according to their choice, this week. Kevin McCullough, glad to be with you. Continue with your calls next here on AFA Today on AFR Talk.